Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing week 23 of my 2020 reads. This week I read a couple of things that got my Pride Month started off right, and I also DNF'd something. Plus, at the end of this video, I wanted to provide a few more resources, some booktube videos, and some links on Black Lives Matter. So the first book that I finished this week was Shout Out, edited by Andrew Wheeler. This is a book that is on my TBR for this month. I was very pleased to read it. It's also something that I'm pretty sure I originally heard about from Njeri at ONYX Pages, and she just did a video talking about her TBR for the Queer Lit Readathon, where this is kind of the book that's going to satisfy so many prompts for her. So I'm going to link that video below if you want to hear somebody else talking about this collection. But basically, this is a collection of comics that are all about queerness, and so all of the contributors are queer, and each of the comics, they're very short, just a couple pages long comics, are celebrating queerness. It is a YA collection, so it's really directed at a slightly younger audience, but I loved reading it as an adult. And there's really also just a focus on kind of fantasy and sci-fi and superheroes in this. I especially loved how positive the messaging was. So much of this was not about queer trauma, but just about celebrating queerness, about queer people as the superheroes, as the center of the stories, looking at whatever they're thinking about, whatever they're feeling, and their adventures. So I loved that about this collection. There were a couple of comics that really stood out to me. One was How to Summon a Demon by CJ Walker. This was so sweet. It's about a boy who summons a demon in order to get some help with exploring his sexuality. It was so cute. Another one that I really loved that just brought me a lot of joy was The Name of the Forest by Day Irwin, illustrated by Vivian Ning. And this was really sweet. It's like a fantasy about a person who goes into the forest to this kind of magical being, and the magical being is willing to, bestow some power upon that person. But in order to do that, they need to know the true name of the seeker of that. And the person who's gone into the forest is like, I really want this power, but I actually don't have a true name. I've been given a name, but it's not my true name. And so it's this beautiful exploration about names and identity and kind of finding out who you are. And it's just absolutely beautiful. So I really loved so much of the artwork in this collection, so much of the joy of the stories. I did think that not every story was quite as strong. So the two that I mentioned were just outstanding, and there were a number of other very good stories, but many of the stories didn't quite grip me. Sometimes the shorter format made it feel either like it was a little bit too much of a jumble, like there was too much pushed into one little volume, or that it just didn't fully explore the idea so well. And I do think that I did really like the positive messages of so many of these, and I love the representation, but just not everything in it really spoke to me. Some of the comics kind of fell a little flat for me. This also could be due to the fact that so much of this seems to be inspired by a lot of superhero comics. And when I have tried to read superhero comics before, I also felt like I had a hard time connecting with the stories. Sometimes it feels like maybe you need a little bit of a background in understanding superhero comics in order to read them, and I don't have that. So I think that even though this maybe isn't a volume that was directed at me as a reader, I still got a lot out of it. I really enjoyed it. I think it's worth picking up, and I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. The other book that I finished this week was Network Effect by Martha Wells. This is the 5th book in the Murderbot Diaries series, which is one of my all-time favorites. I absolutely love this series, and in fact, I have made a series review, which will go up later this week, so keep an eye out for that if you are interested. I was not let down by this book. I absolutely loved it. So this is a book that actually I read out loud to my husband, Sush, because I have done that for the previous 4 novellas as well, and it was so much fun. I don't want to talk too much about the plot because so much of that relies on what has happened in the previous 4 novellas. But in this story, Murderbot basically goes on another adventure and is really facing some new threats and some new things that it has to adapt to. But not just that, it's being forced to do a lot of personal growth. There's a lot of personal growth, and especially growth in terms of what kind of relationships it wants to have with other people. We also get introduced to a bunch of new people, especially some new non-human characters that absolutely I love. I really like seeing a lot of the kind of systems and robots and AIs that get introduced in this series, and it was just so awesome. I really, really loved that. I think that this book was just great in terms of adventure. It really had that great story arc, that adventure, and so much cool stuff that Murderbot is doing. But it was filled with heart, and I absolutely loved it. It really, really moved me. Sush and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And this definitely counts for my queer reads because it is excellent in terms of queer representation. The world itself incorporates so much queerness. So many of the characters are in different places along the gender spectrums, along the sexuality spectrums. We have a lot of important characters who are involved in like polyamorous relationships, all sorts of things. Plus, Murderbot is either non-binary or maybe agender. It isn't human and it doesn't associate with either gender, and it's just great having that kind of main character perspective. So I really loved this book. Satisfied everything I was looking for. It made me cry, made me laugh. I just absolutely adored it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So those were the 2 books that I finished this week. I also DNF'd a book, which was The Indiscretions of Archie by P.G. Wodehouse. So this is one of the many books that Sush is reading to me as bedtime stories. We're trying to go through all of P.G. Wodehouse's works. And this is something that actually it's the second time that we have DNF'd this book, and I think we DNF'd it at the same point each time. So this is something that Sush is reading to me as a bedtime story. And many of P.G. Wodehouse's stories are things that are great. I fall asleep really easily. This one, however, was keeping me awake because the main character, Archie, is just so impossible. He is kind of bumbling and inept at everything. And just like I've mentioned before, I have problems with characters who give me so much secondhand embarrassment. And I was finding that I was not falling asleep because I was just so anxious about what Archie was gonna do and all of the bad mistakes that he was gonna make and how much trouble there was gonna be afterwards. So I really could not get into this story. It was just not my type. We DNF'd it at 29%, but I will let you guys know, don't worry, the next story that we have moved on to, we've been reading for a couple nights, and every night I have fallen asleep without retaining a single sentence. So the next story is going great. Okay, so that wraps up all of my books for this week. If you have read any of these books, you have any thoughts, any comments, please let me know down below. I also wanted to talk about a couple of different resources that people have shared with me over the past week or that I have seen. There are some really, really great things that people are posting right now. So much that is just out there for us to learn from, so I wanted to share a few of those. So first, I'd like to highlight a couple of booktube videos that I think have been really, really helpful. There is so much out there. You should definitely go and watch as many of the videos that people are putting out as you can, because people are putting real effort and time into helping inform us, so we should listen. But these 3 in particular I found really helpful. So the first is a video by Muddiness at mynameismarines, all about the relationship between Black Lives Matter and BookTube. And this video is so short, it's maybe 9 minutes long, and Muddiness does such a great job of extremely concisely explaining how the Black Lives Matter movement affects BookTube, how we should be thinking about it and participating, and sort of what questions we should be asking ourselves moving forward. I think she does an amazing job. She always is so spot on when it comes to analysis and kind of critically thinking about what's going on, especially when it comes to just looking at it through a lens of social justice. I really, really love hearing everything she has to say. And I think that if you're not really sure why it's so important that we talk about Black Lives Matter on BookTube, this video does it for you. It explains it. It's so great. I really, really liked this video. The next video that I want to highlight is by Shae at Books with Shae, and this is her announcement video of the Blackout Buddy Read, which is kind of a buddy read, group read. It has already started from June 5th through June 19th, which is going to end in a live show where she's really encouraging us to read 2 books. The first is White Fragility, which is a book that I read pretty recently and I do recommend. The second is White Rage, which I have started reading, and I am so glad that she has organized this Blackout buddy read because it's a really good opportunity to find other people to read with, to have some direction in terms of what book to read next. And then also I think the live show is going to be so useful in kind of getting that ability to reflect and discuss together. So thank you to Mariana at Quesada, who's the first person who told me about this. Also thank you to other people who have mentioned it to me, such as Leah, who mentioned it in my comments last week, and Reija at the book Finch, because we are actually buddy reading this together. So Mariana is reading it on her own, and I definitely am going to check in with her about it, but Reija and I have set up a schedule to help us kind of check in as we read each chapter. Both of these books, by the way, are pretty short for nonfiction. White Fragility, I think, is just 150 pages, and White Rage, I think, is just about 200 pages of content, plus it has like 100 pages of notes, but it's just about 200 pages of content. So both of these are pretty short, and I'm really excited about this buddy read. I really like learning from nonfiction, especially when I get to discuss it with other people, because so many times you miss things, and it's really helpful to have other people with other perspectives to learn from and to reflect together. So I strongly recommend, even though it's already started, if you have the bandwidth, picking up one of these books and joining in, maybe finding another friend who can read with you, and then joining the live show on June 19th. So this is a great opportunity. And the last video that I want to highlight is by Noria at Noria Reads. She has put together a video of 20 books about race that you should be reading, and I think she did an amazing job with this. All of these links I will put down below in the description box, by the way. So in her video, Noria talks about, I think, something like 15 nonfiction and 5 fiction books, all about race and all about kind of learning about it, learning about the systems. A number of the books that are on her list I have already read and absolutely love. A number of other ones are on my TBR. I highly want to read them. And then a bunch of the others I'd never even heard about, and I'm so excited to put on my list as well. So if you're just looking for kind of long-term, more resources, more ideas of different books that you can read, her video is a great one to just hear another booktuber talking about all of these books that we should be putting on our TBRs. So I do recommend that video as well. And then lastly, in addition to the booktube videos, I wanted to highlight 2 other Google Docs in addition to the ones that I did last week. So last week, Meghan had linked in my comments section a couple of things, and I wanted to just mention them here to give them slightly more visibility, although I did pin that in last week as well. So the first is a Google Doc, which is called Justice in June. And it's basically somebody who took that list of all the different resources about Black Lives Matter and social justice and said, hey, if you have 10 minutes a day, or if you have 25 minutes a day, or if you have 45 minutes a day, let me take those resources and put them into a schedule for you so that every day you can do 10 minutes or every day you can do 25 minutes for the whole month of June and learn about Black Lives Matter. And I just thought that was such a great thing. Somebody has gone to the trouble of putting together like a reading schedule. And it's not just reading, it's also podcasts and TED Talks and movies and all sorts of things. So I will link that below. I think it's an excellent resource, and just if you're feeling lost and you don't know where to get started, that's awesome. 10 minutes a day, I think many of us have that in us, and we can do that. The other doc that I am linking also was linked to me by Meghan, which is a scaffolding for anti-racist resources. And so really what it is it breaks down where you are in your journey to understanding racism. And so the doc kind of lists all of these different stages of sort of understanding race, and you can read the descriptions of what that stage means, and it gives you resources that are good places for you to go to next. And so I think that's really helpful because not all of us are in the same stage of understanding what's going on. So if you're a complete beginner and this is new to you, it tells you what to start with. Or if you're somebody who has heard some of of it, but you're not really sure like where to go next, it kind of gives you some ideas. And I just love that that really treats this as a journey. It treats it as something that we're all going to be working on long term, and figuring out where you are in that journey and giving you some ideas of where to go next. So I really loved that. I also think that just anytime you see or hear anybody talking about Black Lives Matter, just listening is a really good thing to do. You don't necessarily need to, you know, have a schedule for it, but just keep yourself open. I think there are so many things that are out there that are great resources. So if you guys have any other resources that you want to share with me, go ahead and link them below. There are so many more things than what I have just shared, so many other booktube videos that I have been watching, but I wanted to keep the list a little bit shorter and manageable. I hope that you guys will check out some of these resources, and if you do, let me know your thoughts down below. I'd really love to hear from you.